No, I cannot wait. We are currently getting set up for our top 8 here. It is going to be decent shirt. I've been so busy doing my spicy sausage warm-ups that I forgot to do my decent shirt warm-ups. We got decent shirt versus Trishula for top 8. And decent shirt as a caster is going to need to make it all the way today to qualify for Worlds. What a story that would be. But an Eddy! That's an Eddy! That's an Eddy!
Decent shirt, decent shirt, decent shirt,
decent shirt, decent shirt,
decent shirt,
decent shirt,
decent shirt, decent shirt, decent shirt.
Decent shirt.
Shield messes this whole thing up unless decent shirt has an answer. There's the OG Stellar Aphros coming down, as beautiful as ever.
No, I think that prioritizing the KURABBYSS.
We forgot why Eddy was so good.
She's so excited, y'all. This is insane. You know, we did see KURABBYSS fish.
That off!
Oh my god. we cannot keep on getting away with it. We saw KURABBYSS fish inside the top representation, but maybe we needed to do a quick health check on that. This is insane.
Saludos everybody, welcome back to Decent Shirt, where we play cards while you wear decent shirts. And for today's video, we did it against all odds. When everything was like up against me, I was able to not only qualify to Worlds by getting to the finals, but as I was able to make it in style by bringing back an old favorite. So I can't wait to tell you guys about my list. Let's just get on to the video. Alrighty, so let's talk about our list. Here we have good old Sluggle, Stellar Sluggle, who started the journey for us today, and not today, a couple of years ago. And it's thanks to this little card that we took this game as seriously as we did, and I can finally show the results for it. So let's just get on to our video, to our deck profile, sorry. We got our 3 Aphroses. This is a fish deck at the end of the day. So we're gonna play our 9 fishes, right? 3 Aphros, 3 Champ Aphros, 3 Magneros. We are playing 3 Foamies, search for our Aphrodites, and also for our KURABBYSS, which I'm gonna talk about in a bit. We are playing 3 Galaxies. Galaxy came in clutch throughout the tournament because it allowed me to have answers to my opponents throughout the whole run. It didn't matter if it was early or if it was late or if it was in the mid games. Galaxy came up almost every single match. Speaking of coming up clutch in every single match, let's talk about our MVP, Eddy. Eddy is the standout card of this list. Everybody was talking about it, or at least when I finally was debuted in stream. And Eddy, as you guys should already know, on cast it allows you to change the positions of an Celestial, but since it does not target, it means that it evades a lot of different things such as whiteout. So this allowed me to contest stuff like the Morphrost Chimera form, among other things. So the idea was I would have my low end, right, or my Aphroses be how I would start the base, but realistically I would not play my Aphroses at the start. If anything, I wanted to bait out lots of my opponent's cards with some of these cards that would respond a lot of their base starts, especially because as I saw slowly throughout the meta after the ban list, a lot of people were really trying to sit on 5s, particularly 5 defense. Whether that was the Rhynymph that we only saw in the other tournament, but we did see it. The Astravit, which allowed Thunder to resurge. The Sprouter, which allowed the Dionysus deck to have another starter that would also search for Dionysus Madness. Or any other 5s. Corvishine is the other one. These cards allowed me to respond to whatever start they had, and it usually baited out back row, or they just had to let it go. It was really hard for Cyanectors, for example, to justify playing the PTA when they knew that they were going to lose their Cyanector regardless of the PTA. So This card came in super clutch. Eddy was definitely the standout and the MVP, and I'm super glad that we ended up going with it. Now, since we are playing Eddy, after much thought, I thought, what was the best ascension? And realistically, it couldn't have been any other than KURABBYSS. KURABBYSS was a 2-drop that had the highest stats of any of the 2-drops in the game for water, and at the same time allowed it to deal with a lot of threats that fish in itself suffers like heavily, right? One of the biggest weaknesses of fish is that they really struggle to out top ends that are very tall. So that means stuff like 3-drops of like Antitan, Farrageist, Celestlio, Blistrix, all those fall into that. And usually in the back, right, in the past we would rely on Lochagons to be able to deal with those threats, but they were so centric about those ascensions that essentially you limited yourself to having those plays, which allowed you to be a lot more predictable, and therefore your opponent could counter it with cards like Spoil Fruit and all those things. However, this list only centered on throwing KURABBYSS when it was needed, and it even allowed you to cast itself without having to be properly enchanted, and it would still be a threat because it already had 9D attack. So another big reason why KURABBYSS was the main card ascension to play in this format, in my opinion, was because it could deal with untargetable cards. KURABBYSS says that you can disenchant 2 waters from the field, so that means Aphrodite has a lot of value outside of just nexusing from the Aphros. And it would also allow you to destroy a card. It didn't say target it just destroyed the card. So this came up a lot of times, especially against Hermes, which was a deck that I really respected in the testing process. I felt Hermes was one of the strongest decks and one of the decks that had the biggest shot at winning it all, and it really did help me because I went against 3 Hermes. KURABBYSS also allows you to heal equal to the enchanting spirits that were on the card that you destroyed. So the idea was that you could go disenchant from the field and then target a Hermes and destroy the Hermes, and if you did that, you would heal all the spirits. So I can't tell you how many times they would go Hermes into Aviolith and put 4 spirits on the Hermes, and I would just cast the KURABBYSS and I'll just, okay, I'll destroy your KURABBYSS, your Hermes, sorry. And it was really difficult for them. And that wasn't the only way that I had to deal with Hermes, but it definitely was one of the coolest ways because I would get to heal while also punishing my opponent for playing Avioliths. All right, so outside of that, we did have 3 Aphrodites. Aphrodites felt really solid. Obviously, it's a fish list, so you kind of have to see them. Now, let's talk about Rock and a Hard Place. The most wanted card to be seen in stream, and people were like clamoring, where is the Rock and a Hard Place? Where was the Rock and a Hard Place? Well, I was running him, I promise you. I just didn't see him. But Rock and a Hard Place was clutch throughout the whole tournament as well. The idea was that Rock and a Hard Place would put a lot of my opponents in a tricky situation. Not so much for the counter runes, but rather because a lot of people were playing Divines. And this basically forced the opponent to really think about if they really wanted to conserve that Divine. In most cases, they didn't, unless it was a specific deck like Hermes, where this actually allowed me to deal with a lot of the counterplay that Hermes usually has with destruction effects. So normally, if you target and destroy Hermes, they can probably use Hermes Trickery to try to destroy or use the spirits on the Hermes so that way they can return and have some sort of play. But the Rock and a Hard Place makes it so that you can't chain counter runes. So they have to either lose their Elestral or lose their Hermes. Most cases they will lose their Elestral, but the funny thing here is that since they lose their Elestral and they can't change Hermes Trickery, that would mean that they lose their Elestral and the Hermes Trickery is now dead. So a lot of different scenarios where Rock and a Hard Place came in super clutch, not only because if you played it with the Eddy, you could just ascend into the KURABBYSS immediately, and suddenly you had a power play where you outed a card and you had a KURABBYSS that could possibly take out another card and heal in the process. It was really solid, really enjoyed it, and I think that I might even consider running 3 in the future. We did play the one-off Earthquake and 2 Ambrose because healing was kind of necessary in this list. Normally, I would say that if it's not Lochagon, you don't have to play like too many Ambrose. But realistically, this deck does like to go hard on the Afros, so being able to recover some of those spirits was very nice. Now, to end it all, we all have the 3 Gorgons, the 3 Shields, the 2 PTAs, the 2 Dionysus Madness, and obviously the 2 Tsunamis. So, what about Dionysus Madness? Well, here's the thing. Early in the process, I considered many cards such as Peliquarius. I considered a base set Foamy. I considered a lot of different cards for that. But when I was testing against Fish and other decks, it felt like if I didn't draw the counter runes, I would stay behind even with all my answers. So I decided to play Dionysus Madness as another interruption, but also with the idea that Dionysus Madness could do something that none of my other counter runes, except perhaps Shield or Tsunami, could do, which was to stop an attack without targeting it, right? Dacing and Celestial came in super clutch against cards like Chronodile and even Chimera, right? Morphrost Chimera, which would normally have whiteout to protect itself. The Dionysus Madness would allow me to stop that attack. And usually they wouldn't be able to normal cast or cast another Chimera or 5 body. So this was like the winning formula in many cases. It also came in clutch against Earth, which I was teching a lot for. If they wanted to go Lochagon, I could daze their Drataya as soon as they enraged it, so that way they would have to expend another form of resource to try to ascend, or just outright say you can't ascend and they lose a turn. So stuff like that really came in clutch. I really enjoyed this list, and I'm just gonna go into the spirits now. It was very consistent. Let's see, we got here our 13 water, right? Very important. We did play a lot of other colors, and 13 felt right at home. We did have the 2 Ambrose to that help with the math in many cases, but realistically 13 felt really nice. And there were times where some of my side deck cards were spirits. I would even take out one of the waters to play a frost or a wind, and it would come in pretty clutch, and it didn't feel like I needed more than that, so I was happy with that count. We did play 3 Earths because we are playing Earthquake and Dionysus Madness, and the idea was that if we ever drew both of them, that we could still use them without having to rely on Ambro. We did play 2 Owloons. Owloons, it's interesting because I started off playing just 1 for the Rock and a Hard Place, but the deck, when it was testing, it felt like I was always seeing my Rock and a Hard Place, and it felt like it was worth running the second one because you were drawing and searching so many things that you would thin out your deck in a way that you could justify the second Owloon. And in worst case scenarios, you could use this as a spirit to help against Dense Fog. So ultimately, I went with the 2 Owloon, and it was pretty clutch, I would have to say. I did play 2 Saptors because we did play 3 Magneros, so make sure that we could proc those even if one of them was negated. All right, so now on to our sideboard. We have 2 Wind and 1 Frost. I will go into detail in a moment why we played those spirit counts, but first off, I gotta talk about Pandora's Box. This was probably the most important side deck card in my list, at least from a side deck perspective, because I went up against 3 Hermes players, and this was clutch throughout all of the games. I wasn't playing it in the main deck because I really wanted to make space for Dionysus Madness, so I put this in the side, and honestly, it was just so good. The idea was that I really did not want to lose against Hermes, and good golly, I did it. I didn't lose against Hermes, so I was really happy about that. But the thing is that these 2 I had to be very I guess patient with these because I was only playing 2P box. I wanted to play the third one, but I really wanted to make space for other cards. So ultimately I went with the 2P box. And I many cases, I would sit on the P box until it was the right moment. I wouldn't just fire it off on the first try that they tried with the Hermes. I would let them heal. I would let them enchant because I knew that I had multiple ways of punishing my opponent with the Hermes play. So whether that was with the Rock and Heart plays or the KURABBYSS or X card, I don't know. Maybe Dionysus Madness to enrage their Spy Nymph if they didn't ascend that turn. Those kind of things. Pandora's Box would just allow me to seal the game. And that's essentially what you guys saw with, I believe, in the match against Trishula, where I held the P box until it was the perfect moment. And I let him heal as much as he wanted to. And I had that card set throughout the whole match, basically, or throughout the whole game. But I just wanted to wait for that specific moment where he needed the Hermes and I would just P-box it. And I did that throughout many of my matches and it came in super clutch, so I'm super happy about that. We did play the 2 Atlantis because there was Foloi Forest and Solar was very represented. I felt like, even though I didn't expect Solar to be like hugely represented, I always wanted a way to deal with the Nova Cores. And Atlantis definitely helped with that, especially against the Lightbringer in semifinals. I've went up against him and his Solarless, and I was able to stop the Nova Core and then cast Atlantis so that I would be able to swing with the fish and beat over it. So that was super, super clutch. We did play 2 tornadoes, and this is one of the reasons why we played the 2 wind, because outside of the P box, I also had tornado to punish all of those divine decks that really wanted to put a lot of spirits on their divines. Particularly, this was just for Hermes, because if they went Aviolith in turn 1 or turn 2 or whenever, and they would just restock their Hermes with Aviolith, I would just cast Tornado, and I got to do that against White Rebellion in, I believe, the 3rd or 4th round, and it probably won me the match because he was so low on spirits after that he had to cover a lot of ground, which was really hard when you were punishing them and putting a lot of pressure with the fish. So another reason why we're playing wind, we're playing 2 Peliquarius. Now, Peliquarius is one of my favorite cards in this format, and I know a lot of people don't really experiment with it. I think it has a lot of potential, especially with cards like Necklace and such. But the main reason why I ran it is because we were also running Terrorsail. And Terrorsail is a card that it's heavily underexplored, in my opinion. I think that cards like decks like Hermes could definitely try using it. But in theory, as long as you're not going against the mirror match, Terrorsail is a really, really good card, and that's why I put it on the side. If you don't know what it does, basically, while it is enchanted, all water and wind enchanted Elestrals, that includes your opponents, so that's why I didn't use it on the side, but all water and wind enchanted Elestrals get +3 attack. It also meant that they couldn't be returned to the hand by opponent's card effects, and it couldn't be targeted by divine rune effects. That meant that you couldn't Zeus this card or any of my water or wind Elestrals. You couldn't shield my card or any of my wind or water Elestrals. This card came in so clutch in testing, and as long as I wasn't going against water, this card was insane. It was insane because you could just go on your fish, and if you just wanted to continue putting pressure with wide, but go a little bit overboard, or not overboard, but over the threshold that usually stops fish like 5s and defenses, Terrorsail would just come in there and just say, yeah, now my Aphros is probably a 7 or an 8, depending if I have a second fish in for it. And Peliquarius would allow me to ascend into the Terrorsail quite easily. I could have decided to play the Terrorsail without the Peliquarius, but the Peliquarius also allowed me to ascend into the KURABBYSS if I wanted another option, or if I felt like Rock and a Hard Place wasn't really doing it for me. So ultimately, I did go with those 3, and I did play 2 KURABBYSS. Very important for all the fish involved. It was my second most teched in card or sided in card throughout the tournament run, and for good reason. It was super vital against Fish because you could just destroy their airflows and then break their board from there. And ultimately, I went with Resting on Your Laurels because, again, we did struggle a little bit against tall decks. So Resting on Your Laurels will let me be able to destroy a tall deck if they didn't have any other Elestrals. So Resting, very important, very good. And I don't know if I would change anything from this list. Or rather, I don't know what I would change for it because I felt like I could have used Spectress in my side, at least in the finals. I don't think I missed it throughout the whole tournament, but in that finals with the Foamies, I definitely, if I had Dense Fog or Spectress, it probably would have been a little bit different. Regardless, I was super happy with this list. I think it did what it had to do, and I just want to get into my final thoughts of the tournament. So let's head on to that part. I just want to do a small shout out to everybody because this weekend has been surreal for me. I really did not expect to be able to make it this far. Not only in this tournament run, but rather also qualifying for Worlds. This was a long time goal for me. It was something that as soon as it was announced, I really felt like I had a chance, but I wanted to prove it to myself more than anything, more than anyone. I wanted to prove it to myself because I do sometimes deal with insecurities and the fact that I don't consider myself as good as a player, and the fact that I was able to slowly but surely build up the points only through Premier challenges goes to show not only to you guys but also to myself the growth that I've gone through in this tournament tournament circuit. Sorry. The idea that I started off in the competitive scene, not even being able to get to top 32 at any of the first couple of tournaments from Frostfall, not even Daybreak. It was only until I got to the last tournament of Moonrise that I was finally able to get my first top 16 in the final tournament of Moonrise. And then after that, from there on, I was able to reconnect with some old other players from the PR scene, such as Pope. You guys should already know him. He is a Premier champion, and we started working together. And from there on, something clicked, and we just were able to improve. Right, we were able to help each other, and in a certain way, I was also able to gain some not only motivation but also a confidence in myself that I could actually do this stuff. And from top 16 to top 16 to very dreadful top 16s where I was so close to getting top 8. I was so dreadfully close so many times, and I came off short. Honestly, if anyone that asked me in the last couple of months, they were just asking me like, "Are you going to Worlds? Are you going to Worlds?" And I would tell them, "I don't know. I'm only going to consider it if I actually qualify, because me living from Puerto Rico, it's very expensive to arrive to Las Vegas because we are technically not a domestic flight in theory. So lots of connection airlines, lots of money, and I'm only a teacher. I work as a teacher in my main day job, so I don't make that much money. I really just do this out of the love for this game, the passion that I have, my competitive drive, and I wanted to prove it to myself. That really was, at the end of the day, what I wanted to do more than anything. I wanted to prove myself that I could do it. And without much ado, I just want to say thank you to every one of you. Every single one of you that have seen my videos, everyone's that has written to me through DM or replied, because whether that was in both a negative experience or a positive experience, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. It drove me. It made me want to prove people wrong. It made me want to be acknowledged. But at the same time, it made me realize that I had this competitive spirit that I couldn't quench until I put my all into it. And that's why this YouTube channel has been taking a downturn a little bit. Haven't been as consistent, but it's because I've been focusing so much on this goal, and I am so proud to say that I finally was able to do it. And it feels surreal. It feels insane. So I'm just going to sign off by giving a huge thanks to Pope. Pope, man, you've been a great testing partner, and I wouldn't be here without many of your ideas and without you pushing me and telling me you can do it. You're gonna win this tournament. He was saying that from the very first round. He was just saying, "Don't worry, you're gonna win this tournament. You're gonna win this tournament. You're gonna win this tournament." And I was very hesitant. I was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna take it one thing at a time. I don't think I'm gonna. I just want to be able to get points, you know, and at least get my top 16 if I'm not going to qualify for Worlds, get my playset. And he was like, no, dude, you're going to do it. So huge thanks to him. Huge thanks to Iram, which was another of our testing circle, who always was there to practice. He has been going through a learning curve because this is technically his first CCG, and he has improved so much in the last year. And he's helped me improve. This idea of the KURABBYSS was something that I gave to him so he could practice the fish with the deck that I was testing before this one, and he just mixed it up in a way that it just worked so well. And ultimately he gave me the list, like, dude, this is the list that you should take. And here we are, second place, runner up, and finally qualified for Worlds. And yeah, there's so many other people that I want to thank: my wife, my family members, my friends and family, in work, in Elestrals community, all the staff members. Thank you for making this game as accessible as it is, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to compete. And I can say that with certainty, this is something that you cannot get in any other TCG. This is the most accessible TCG game, and I hopefully I will keep enjoying this game for many years to come. So without much ado, I am looking forward to seeing you guys on Las Vegas, Nevada in March 20th to March 22. Without much ado, Decent Shirt signing out. Thanks, guys.